what we've been discovering is that when a crisis arrives, all of the weak and fragile points in the food supply chain surface. And I think this is actually a good thing because we're discovering all those areas that are ripe for innovation, and this accelerates that change. We've had a food supply chain really since the Industrial Revolution, in small scale and now after World War II in larger scale. And it's based on centralization and uh, uh, concentration of resources. And that sort of optimization is really being challenged now. And we're going to be seeing more distributed networks, more personalized, more adaptable. And so I think all those algorithms are about to change. And I think this crisis really forces that to the forefront.
One thing that I've been thinking about a lot with the present crisis is that there are really two ways in which the food system figures. One is the role of the food system or a part of the food system in causing the crisis. The other is the role of another part of the food system in mitigating it or in the response. And in a way, these two roles are complementary. Because one of the things that we've seen since early on is that it is almost certain that that food supply chain for animal source foods was implicated in instigating the pandemic. Whereas what I'm hearing anecdotally and what I'm observing is that people in responding to the crisis at the household level are waking up to the fact that the food supply for plant source foods is actually a lot more resilient, particularly with respect to the reduced needs for cold chain maintenance and reduced needs for storage of foods in intact forms as water-based gels.
So I would echo largely what's been said, which is that what's really happening is that the vulnerabilities of the food chain and the food system are very much exposed right now. And these vulnerabilities, people that have been studying the food system have been aware of for a very long time. But I think now consumers and the public at large are really understanding the weaknesses and vulnerabilities that are there. And some of these have already been brought up. The part of the food system I focus on is labor and food systems labor throughout the food chain. And what we're seeing is while workers are being deemed as essential workers, they're also, suffering through this epidemic with no health insurance, no basic sick leave policies. And these have been things we've been calling the alarm on for decades. And that they don't have these protections while they're essential. They're consistently overworked and they're not actually easily replaceable. And that's kind of a myth of the food system workers, that they're unskilled and that they're very easily replaceable. And what we see is that's not true. And just last week, for example, in South Dakota, we had over 200 workers at a pork processing plant test positive. The processing plant is now closed indefinitely, and they provide 5% of the pork to our food supply. We're not just putting new workers into that job. These are vulnerable positions, and we now see this huge vulnerability in our food system. And I think this is an opportunity to, like Robin said, correct these really huge problems with our food system.
Hi, I'm Robin Metcalf. I'm a professor at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm the author of Food Roots.
I'm Josh Burson. I'm an anthropologist and philosopher, an alumnus of the Berg-Gruen Institute and the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences, and I'm the author of The Meat Question.
Hi, I'm Laura Ann Minkoff-Zern. I'm a professor in food studies program at Syracuse University, and I am the author of The New American Farmer: Immigration, Race, and the Struggle for Sustainability.